In this video, we are going to compare the Orville to Star Trek Enterprise in just a moment. Today, I believe that Enterprise and the Orville are very similar types of programs in what they were trying to achieve. Now, many people have compared the Orville with Star Trek: The Next Generation, and the look of the show is very much similar. The technology is very much similar, except for transporters. But other than that, very similar in that. But in the way they present their crew and their society, they go more back to what it looked like they were doing with Enterprise. And I believe that they succeeded in one way that Enterprise did not. First thing, I believe that Enterprise tried to portray Starfleet in the early days as less stiff, less structured, and a little more like the society we have today rather than the idealized society that would come later. This is something that people have criticized Star Trek for. With this idealized society, they don't act like regular people, and it sometimes makes a rather sterile presentation. I think they were trying to change that with Enterprise, but did not always succeed. What they did was rely on tropes like their engineer Trip calling the captain Captain, and having kind of an exaggerated Southern accent. Things like this, I believe, were meant to humanize the crew, but they came out as kind of false. And in fact, even Captain Archer was portrayed as kind of a doofus. I think the attempt was to make him more human, but what it ended up doing was making him look a little bit less than competent. And we know that if you were going to send your first flagship Warp 5 ship out into space, you weren't going to just see who was next in line. It was going to be very carefully picked. And so I think that Archer was done a disservice, especially in the early seasons. In the later seasons, he became a bit more assertive, and they were better shows, but he still didn't have that human element. Now let's take the Orville. They have come in with the same idea that they want to make the characters more relatable. And in this case, perhaps they've come a little too far in the other direction, being too 21st century rather than set so much in the future. They try to get this human element expressed in 21st century jokes and cultural references that somebody 500 years from now probably would not have much of a knowledge of, or at least certainly not a common knowledge of. So these are things that kind of bother me about that. But generally speaking, I think that they do it better than Enterprise does. They don't fall back on cliches. Also, the sense of humor that is displayed in the Orville is more like people interact with each other. Now, it can be all business on the bridge when there are important things to do, like encountering some new race or having some battle sequence with the Krill or things like this, but in their off time. They have made it a point to spend more time showing you what people do after hours. They go and they have drinks after work. They go and they watch movies. They socialize with each other. They try to get to know the new neighbors, as the captain did with Bortus, and wanted to learn how to play one of their games. It ended with the game being something that was a little more dangerous than humans might like. But it was done very well, and you can see the early attempts of this, and I think were more successful than they were in Enterprise. Daily life is another one of these things. They have parties. They visit each other's rooms. They talk about things that are nothing to do with the job, but just personal things. Now, I think perhaps that they spent a little too much time talking about Mercer's marriage to Kelly and their bickering about whose fault it was that they split up. But I think they've pretty much resolved that by the end of the season, that they will be able to continue as people who have had a past, but who put that past behind them. They know each other very well, and I think they can use that in some of those moments. It's these moments that I believe are the heart of this series. The fact that they will go have a beer with their friends, or they will go and have an intimate dinner with someone they're trying to rebuild a relationship with, or parties to loosen the strain of being away from home. These are things that happen on military ships even now, so there's a good reason to believe that things like that would happen on the Orville. So these make it much more believable, much more human, and the attempts by Star Trek to do this somewhat in The Next Generation, somewhat more in Deep Space Nine, and in Enterprise, I think they missed the mark. So let's give kudos to the Orville for being able to get human interaction right, and the science fiction will take care of itself. I'd like to know what you think. Please leave a comment down below, and also click the subscribe button as well. That would make me very happy, and also would like to give us a like. We'd like to see that too. Thank you for joining us. Don't go far.